Skowhegan. Um, yeah, I've had the pleasure of working with Chris and Will and Celia on a couple different campaigns. And this is, like Chris was saying, such an important issue because it's so fundamental to every other issue that I care about and work on. So I'm really happy to be here and to see so many people who are ready to jump into this with us.
All right, thank you so much, Kelly. I'm really glad to have you on the campaign. I've not had the pleasure to work with this next gentleman, but he came so highly recommended that I'm really excited to work with him. This was Joel. Joel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, yep. My name is Joel Small. I worked on the No CMP Corridor campaign, and I'm really excited to get back into things. I see a few volunteers here who I worked with before, Linda in particular. So I'm just really excited to work on another, bipartisan issue that's so important to a lot of Mainers. So thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Joel. All right, really glad to have you on board. I first met this next person when they were organizing on the UMF campus, and we're lucky to have their youthful perspective and energy. Celia Canavan will be joining our team as a digital organizer. Celia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, thanks so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Celia. I use they, them pronouns. I am currently on the unceded territory of the Abenaki people, which is now known as Farmington, Maine. I'm really excited to be here. I am a student organizer at UMF and have been kind of bridging out my efforts into more relational organizing. This issue has been one that I've seen quite sadly creep into some student work, so I'm very excited to get to work with all of you and learn a little bit more about what happens outside of campuses.
Thank you, Celia. Yeah, we've seen the influence of money in just about every form of election. It's pretty unfortunate. Really glad to have you on board here. And then last, but certainly not least, Will Hardy will be joining our team. Will is an old friend, and I'm really looking forward to continuing this work with him. Will, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, everyone. It's Will Hardy, he, him. It's really great to be a part of this project, and it's been great to work. It's great to work with Chris again. I worked under him on the Lisa Savage campaign, and that was a great experience. And Chris really couldn't have said it better about the importance of getting money out of politics, and I've seen it in real time cause chaos in our local politics. So it's really great to be part of this, and hope to meet all of you in person.
All right, great. So this is our team of amazing organizers that are going to be building on the work that we've been doing over the last few months. And, if you've been involved in the campaign up to this point, you know how big this is for us. We had a really small team through the winter, and, we kind of struggled to ever get off the ground or really click. And now that we've got this amazing team coming together all at this this time when the weather is warming up and people are being active again, it's really a huge thing for our campaign. So next, I'm gonna just take us through an overview of the campaign, and I'll do a little signature collection training afterwards. I've got a slideshow. I'll share my screen and we'll go over some information so that folks have some background about what this issue is, why it's important, and then what we can do about it. At the end, I'll post some links for next steps so people can continue to stay involved with the work we're doing. And then I will keep the meeting open. We'll end at 7:30, but I'll keep the meeting open in case people have, we'll have Q&A at the end, and then I'll just keep the meeting open for anyone who wants to continue to ask questions or just hang out and chat. So with that, I'm going to share my screen. And I also wanted to mention, if folks have questions as I go, you don't necessarily have to wait till the Q&A. Feel free to just throw them in the chat, and I'll address them as they come up. But otherwise, you can hold on, and we'll just open things up at the end. get started here. A second to figure out my technical difficulties here. All right. So I just wanted to, provide some background on what this is. The group that is organizing this effort is called Protect Maine Elections. And the reason that we're coming together is because of this issue in our campaign finance laws. We currently have a loophole in our law that allows for foreign-owned entities to contribute to Maine ballot campaigns. And then there's this this broader issue of campaign finance reform. So I'll get into the nuts and bolts here in a second, but Protect Maine Elections is a nonprofit organization where a group of Maine concerned citizens. It's a pretty small team, but we've got about 200 volunteers around the state who've been working on this issue, and a lot of momentum here. LD 194. So the bill, how this all came about, want to just provide a little background. This ballot initiative was initially an LD, a legislative document. It was a bill that passed in the legislature. It went through the House and Senate without an issue, but was eventually vetoed by Governor Mills. So Protect Maine Elections was formed in October to address the loophole in the campaign finance system. So what the bill was, I think we all remember last year, there was a ballot initiative that had a lot of attention, national spotlight. It was a record-shattering $90 million ballot initiative. And as part of that initiative, a foreign-owned entity contributed directly upwards of $40 million, I believe it was, to influence the outcome of the election. So this sort of exposed this loophole in Maine's campaign finance laws that does nothing to stop foreign-owned entities or foreign government-owned entities from contributing to influence the election. And because of that election, a spotlight was put on that campaign finance law, and our elected officials worked to try to fix that. And it was a strongly supported bill. It went through like I said, House and legislature with strong bipartisan majorities, but was eventually vetoed by the governor. And so Protect Maine Elections was formed shortly after to take that bill and bring it to the citizens for a vote. We currently have over half of the signatures that we need, and we aim to collect the rest by September 1st. These are some of the people who have been out collecting signatures for us. We have had a lot of fun, especially since the weather's been warming up. We've been out having events just out in downtown areas or farmers markets. Anywhere we can find a gathering of people, and we've been putting a Bluetooth speaker on the table with candy and getting a bunch of folks together. It's just been it's been a lot of fun. Oops. All right, ballot initiative explained. So getting to the nuts and bolts here, the ballot initiative is called an act to prohibit foreign influence in Maine elections and promote an anti-corruption amendment to the US Constitution. This has got a few components, but I really look at it as three parts. So the first part is that it closes this loophole in Maine's campaign finance laws. It would stop foreign government influenced entities from directly contributing to Maine ballot campaigns or candidate campaigns. So it closes that loophole. Part two is that the second section is that it increases disclosure. So it will require these entities to have to disclaim their spending on ads, and it will require news outlets to actually regulate those disclosure laws. So better disclosure, more transparency with campaign spending. That's part B. And then part C, which is something I'm personally very excited about, is the anti-corruption amendment. So it would call on Maine's legislators, our federal legislators, to support a constitutional amendment, a US constitutional amendment, to return the rights to give states the rights to set reasonable campaigns limits. So this is part C is sort of about the broader movement of campaign finance reform. Without getting too much into the weeds, we've in the last 10 years or so, we've seen a huge surge in campaign spending nationally as the result of a few Supreme Court rulings in the early 2000s that really opened the floodgates for campaign spending. And since then, it's just been absolutely out of control. And I think we've all seen that happen. So the group, we're partnered with a group called American Promise, which is working nationally to promote a US constitutional amendment that would undo those court cases by allowing states to control their own campaign finance laws. It would allow Congress or states to put reasonable limits on campaign spending if they decide that they would like to. And this would just be Maine joining 22 other states that have called on this US constitutional amendment. One of the really exciting things about this issue is the fact that it's bipartisan. You heard that from Joel. Just on our staff, we have Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Greens. We're seeing support from every political party, every demographic. We see when these issues are polled that they're regularly in the 70 to 80% support rate for both sides of the aisle. And I wanted to share this picture because this is this kind of shows the bipartisan support. You've got state legislator Seth Berry, Congressman Jared Golden. To the very left there, that's Senator Rick Bennett, who's our campaign chairman. So you've got a Republican, a few Democrats. There's actually the Krista West on the right, is a Republican organizer. We've got independents here. So this is really exciting. It's not something that I'm used to experiencing. Most of the issues I've worked on have been very, polarizing, and it's a new experience to work across the aisle, but it's been amazing. I'm getting to meet people that I otherwise really wouldn't get to really know, and work with people I wouldn't get to work with otherwise. And I think after a few years of isolation and global pandemic, and that with political divisiveness worse than it's ever been, we can all use something like this and an effort to bring us together and work cross aisle. So that's our initiative, right? This is, I'm going to stop my share for a second and then I'll go back to it. This issue is so important. It's the money in politics issue. It's at the foundation of all of the other issues that we care about. And until we can address that, until we can really return our elections to the people of Maine, we're not going to have fair representation. So I'm really excited about this. I think that it's highly supported by Maine people, is what we're seeing out in the field and in all parts of the state. A lot of times ballot initiatives get this flack for being, collecting all their signatures in Portland. But we're out all over the state. We've been in Farmington, Skowhegan. We're planning events up in Presque Isle and in Washington County, and everywhere we go, people are supporting this issue. It seems like a no-brainer for most folks, but just because it's widely supported doesn't mean that it's just going to slide through. So right now, we have to do the work, which is collecting signatures. For a Maine ballot initiative, you need just over 63,000 valid petition signatures to get your question on the ballot, which means collecting about 80,000 because you have to consider any signatures that may get thrown out in the process. So our job now is to collect these signatures to get this on the ballot so that the Maine people can decide for themselves whether our elections should be decided by Maine people or by billionaires and foreign governments. So we've got just over half of our signatures, and we have until September 1st to collect the rest. We've got some exciting opportunities for people to be engaged moving forward. And so part of what I wanted to cover tonight is how we do this signature collection process so people can see what to expect when we're out doing the work. I think this may be a good time if people have specific questions about the referendum, the bill, the language, anything like that. Feel free to throw your hand up and I'll call on you. and then we'll get into the volunteer stuff. Louise?
I have a question. I heard you're going to collect signatures at the primary in June, correct?
Correct.
So I know it's inevitable. I worked only 2 hours at the Norway polls in last election, and I don't think they had coverage most of the day. So we missed a lot of potential people. But I know there's going to be duplicates because people will not remember whether they signed it or not, I'm sure. So how, I mean, is that part of the fact you need 80,000 because it's going to be invalids or duplicates?
Yeah, there are duplicates also, so that's part of the problem. There's no issue with people signing twice. What happens is the Secretary of State just scratches out the duplicate, but yes, we do have to account for those duplicates, which is why we have an overage. And we will be making a big push to be at the June elections, which is our best opportunity left for collecting signatures. So we can get about half of what we need what we have left during the June election, but the rest of the signatures are going to be more of a fight. We have to really dig for those ones. Any other questions about the referendum before I jump into the signature collection stuff? Yeah, Barbara.
I started collecting. I'm collecting for the other one, for the Our Power, and I think Kate was one of the organizers for that, and for both of them. So she got me to go ahead and collect. But what I missed out on was I didn't seem to have enough information on the this clean election, I guess you call it. No, yeah, campaign. And is there brochures or papers, flyers, or something that we can have access to in order that when we set up our table, there's a sheet in case somebody wants to know more about it? I felt I could talk about it actually, because I did follow the LD 194 and how it got vetoed and explain that to people, but some people immediately signed. I found that, and I collected for the no CMP corridor one, and boy, I mean, I put that in front of anybody and they were immediately, yeah, I'm a voter and I'm signing. And I found a real struggle in this past winter doing it. A lot more people were saying, nope, not signing that. Nope, not interested. How do you, one-liners that would make them immediately interested?
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. It's a good point. So I think I noticed the same thing, that in the winter, people were not wanting to sign. And I think that part of that was COVID rates were spiking, holiday stress, cold weather, pandemic fatigue, Kelly said. Because now when we're out and the sun is shining, people are a lot more interested in what we're doing. But it does make a difference to have little one-liners to catch people. And I'll get into that a little bit more. But I think that, even just keeping it simple, like talking about, hey, we're collecting signatures for this initiative. Would you like to check it out? And then go into a little more detail. Or you could just try something to catch people, like, do you want to protect Maine's elections from billionaires or foreign governments? Or would you like, do you think that billionaires should be able to buy Maine elections? We're going to have more of these volunteer sessions where we brainstorm different ideas like that and more communication strategies. And we do have some flyers where they're not officially printed yet, but we have something designed. We don't quite have the funds to do mass printing, but I can send you a PDF, or we could print a few at least for some of the tabling events we have.
Oops. A PDF would be fine, actually.
Perfect. Okay, great. And I'm going to send some resources around after this. So some of the stuff I'm talking about, you'll get as links at the end. So I'm going to jump back into the slideshow so that we can do the signature collection part. And some of this stuff we'll be covering anyway as I go through. So like I mentioned, the signature collection is our game right now. We've got these petitions. You can collect signatures from Maine voters. So I'm going to go through the who, what, when, where, why here. Who can collect signatures? Any registered voter in Maine can circulate and sign petitions. There is currently an injunction in Maine, which is allowing out-of-state residents to collect signatures. So for the time being, out-of-state residents can collect, but we don't go around really advertising that. It's just sort of a current injunction that's causing that. New voters should register before signing the petition. So anyone can collect signatures as long as they're a Maine voter or this injunction is happening, and any registered Maine voter can sign the petition. So we get people asking a lot, like, is this just an initiative in Bangor or Farmington, wherever we're collecting? No, it's a statewide initiative. Anyone in Maine can sign. We do ask that you keep each petition to one town specific, because the petition has to then go to the town for validation. So if we get 20 different towns on one sheet, it has to go to 20 different towns for validation. It makes the compliance side of things really challenging. So you just keep a sheet for each town that you run into, and I write the town in the top right corner and keep them in alphabetical order. So when someone says they're from Wiscasset and I've got 100 different towns, I can find Wiscasset fairly easily. Of course, if you're just collecting in your local town, you probably only need 4 or 5 sheets and it'll be a little easier. But if you really get involved, you'll have to have, you'll carry a stack of petitions around. Whoops, sorry. Oh yeah, here's another one of our signature, a couple more of our signature collection events. We will set up tables just on the street and sidewalks and places and put signs on the tables and draws people in. Or you can go out with a clipboard like you see in the other picture and just talk to folks. All right, we'll get back to this. So what do you need? We have petitions. They have to be printed in our office and distributed, so you can't get them printed on your own, but we can get you set up with them. We have some folks around the state who are happy to connect with you. So after this, I'll include some information about getting you set up with your petitions. You do need to fill out what's called a circulator affidavit. So this is a form from the state that just registers you to collect signatures. It's a 1-page form you fill out. It does have to be notarized though. So you'll fill out the form, get it notarized, and then you'll be valid for signature collection. A clipboard really helps. If you have one that's the size of the petition, which is 18 by 12 or 11, then that is really helpful. You can use a standard clipboard and just fold the petitions, or I've even just taken a piece of plywood and cut it to the size of the petition and throw a clip on it. Or you use tables too. Like I mentioned, we carry a lot of these little 4-foot folding tables that fold into suitcases. They're pretty affordable and they're really helpful. And we have a few extras, so if people want, they can borrow them. You want to have plenty of pens. And if it's cold out, it's still a little chilly today, you want to keep a pen in your pocket because the ink tends to gel up. We are still dealing with COVID. So just because things are opening back up, we should still be mindful of that. It's good to have a mask and hand sanitizer on the table, or wear your mask and keep the hand sanitizer on the table. And then other materials would include like a table, I mentioned, chair, signs. We have signs, and we've got some handouts. And then we like to spice things up, like I said. So bring a Bluetooth speaker. We have bubbles on the table for kids, candy. We kept a hula hoop by the table the other day, and people were coming up and playing with it. So you can have fun with this. And if you get a group of friends together, it's great. We even did like a little cookout afterwards. And we're going to plan more of these events around the state. So, this kind of work is so much easier when we come together, learn from each other, share in the misery of a bad interaction, sharing the excitement of a good interaction. So part of this work that we're going to be doing over the next couple of months is building events in other parts of the state, training volunteers to be able to carry those events forward, bringing around new equipment and tables and all that for people to be able to use. So we're excited to do that work with you. All right, so here you can see one of the tables we threw up. Moving right along here, where can I collect? So you can collect signatures pretty much anywhere except for private property. And some private property you can, if you ask permission from a business owner, sometimes they'll let you collect there. But a good policy is if it's public property, you should be allowed to collect there, which means like parks work, sidewalks, busy downtown areas are a good place to collect. You can collect in front of some post offices, parks, libraries. We call towns and get permission to collect at transfer stations. Farmers markets are amazing. We had one volunteer collect over 100 signatures at a farmer's market a few weeks ago in just a couple hours. So, you know, events like that, anytime you get a place where people are congregating, bigger events can be good, concerts sometimes. You know, keep an eye out for those kind of events. Let us know if you find some but can't be there. But those are really great locations. Barbara, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I usually go to like the North Atlantic Blues Festival, and I know that does attract people from out of state and everything, but I think that would be a good location. What I don't know is, do we need to pay for like a vendor spot to be able to collect there? I guess that's something to check into.
Yeah, so it's a great question. We are planning on being at over 20 different fairs and festivals around the state, and we will have permission as vendors to be there. So we'll set up a whole booth and we'll do the whole deal, which is a really fun opportunity for volunteers. If, especially like the Common Ground Fair, we were able to provide free tickets to volunteers who help. And then, you know, we only ask you to help for a couple hours and you get to go enjoy the fair. So that kind of stuff can be fun. The Blues Festival, we can definitely look into. Sometimes it depends. Some of the bigger fairs require it's a pretty steep cost for a table, but it's worth looking into. And then what we've done with, for example, the Clam Festival, we couldn't afford a table there the last time I did this, but we were able to just walk around with a clipboard in some of the busy places, and it was great. And yeah, in some of these places, some of the bigger events, you'll get a lot of people from out of state, but when there's so many people, it ends up being still worth it to collect. Thank you for that question, Barbara. And I see a few questions in the chat I'm just going to address now too. So regarding the affidavit, if you have been collecting signatures for a different initiative, we are still asking you to fill out an affidavit for this campaign. It just makes tracking this stuff really challenging when trying to collaborate between campaigns. So we're asking folks to either take a photocopy of the one that you have for the other campaign or submit a new one. And but if you've already filled out a circulator petition for this campaign, but you collected last fall, you're all set. You don't have to fill out a new one if you've already submitted one to our campaign. Yes. All right, so I'm going to jump back in here. Big events are great too. So keep your eye out for these festivals, the parades. Art walks are starting again. If there's a rally in your area or a concert play, plays at like Merrill Auditorium often get lines around the corner, and people standing in line are a great target for signature collection because they've got nowhere to go. So those kind of things are really good. And then also, what can be really beneficial is if you live in a small town. I've got a place in Eustis, so there's one store that everybody goes to, and if it's a small town, a lot of times you can get permission to be in front of that store or even be inside sometimes, especially if you know the owners. So looking into your neighborhoods, where are the busy places, what stores, what connections do you have that you might be able to tap to get an opportunity for collecting signatures. And then when should I be out? So obvious, this one's pretty obvious. I want to be out when people are out. The busy times, busy events. So evenings, if I am going to stand in front of a post office, I'm going to go around noontime, or I'm going to go right at the end, like 3, 4, 5 o'clock. You know, you want to look for regular events. Those can be really good to just find a place to go every week. If you're going door to door, you want to be out on evenings and weekends when people are home. And, you know, what's a reasonable time commitment? It's really whatever you can do. We do have, you know, a time limit on getting these signatures, but even just an hour, a couple hours a week goes a long way. And how do I get started? So the first thing that we have to do is get you set up with your petitions and your circulator affidavit, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on that. But then, you know, what is it like? How do I actually approach people? So when you're out there, there are some tricks that can help you to find, to improve your effectiveness as a signature collector. So, you know, one is you could try different types of canvassing. Some are easier for others than others for folks. So tabling is a really good one. Like we've talked about a few times, bringing a folding table and just setting it up somewhere. Being able to stand behind the table with a sign is just, it's more comforting than being out with a clipboard. You can let people come to you. There's some curiosity if you have a table with a sign, so people will come up to you. But there's also some benefits in going door to door in the right neighborhood at the right time, and even just being out with a clipboard. So you might try different styles and see what feels right for you. I always encourage people to team up. It's a tough thing to do by yourself. So find a partner, recruit a friend, or connect with us. We try to always pair people up or group you up together if possible. And then the way that you talk to people matters. So, you know, I know politics can be a heated thing and we get passionate about these issues, but yelling at people to support them is never going to be the way to get them to sign the petition. So, you know, first impressions matter. Be friendly, wave. Your tone of voice is really important. Eye contact, body language. And I think too, with that right now is like respecting personal space and being mindful with a mask when you're talking to someone who's also wearing a mask, and you know, just respecting that distance. We talked about this a little bit, but finding a good opening line. And I like to try a few different ones when I'm out and just see what works. Sometimes it's just as simple as, hey, are you a registered voter? Because it gets people saying yes. And then once they say yes and they stop, then you can dive into the topic. You might also want to just use something vague, but a little more engaging. So something like, do you want to stop corruption in Maine elections? And people, you know, who's going to say no to that? So, you know, trying these little phrases are really helpful. And if you find one that really works well for you, let us know. One that was recommended is, would you like to prohibit foreign spending in Maine elections? It's really simple and explanatory. So I think that that's a pretty good one. Do you want to prohibit foreign government spending in Maine elections? It doesn't really touch on some of the other parts of the bill, but it, depending on where you are in the state, can work really well. Another thing too is that fact that this is bipartisan. So you want to focus on different things when you're talking to people of different political affiliations. So the foreign money part work is more supported by conservative voters typically, whereas the supporting the broader movement of campaign finance reform is typically supported more by liberal voters. They're both of these issues are supported by a majority of the left and right, but we just see varying levels of support depending on which part of the bill you're talking about. So you may just want to, like, as you're buzzing through some of these things that the bill does, wait and see when people's eyes light up, and that's the issue that you want to lean in and talk to them about. Couple other recommendations: organizing the petitions by town. We talked about. You have to fill out the entire line. So you know, I will. Here, I'll stop my screen share so you can see the petition again. So this is what the petition looks like, and you have to witness the person fill out the petition, sign the petition. They have to fill out every line, so they have to. Well, every line has to be completed, but they have to sign it. Then they have to fill out the rest, or you can fill out the rest. You're allowed to fill out everything except the signature for them, but they have to do everything, which means signing the date, their street address, the municipality, and printing their name. Let's see. You have to put your name at the top of each petition. And then once you've collected the petition signatures and you're ready to be done, you have to get each petition notarized before you can hand them in. And that's really important because if you hand in an unnotarized petition, they become invalidated. The petitions technically aren't supposed to leave your possession until they are notarized. They're okay in your house or in a locked car. You don't have to carry them in your pocket everywhere you go, but before you can give them to anyone, before you can hand them into a town clerk or to our campaign, they have to be notarized. Barbara?
I would just like to share that a lot of town clerks are now notaries, and they can notarize as many towns as you got. Then there's a second section where the town clerk of each individual town is the one who certifies the signatures. And that's a separate section that gets filled out, notarized by the town clerk.
Yeah, so it's an interesting process. So we've been approved to collect these signatures. Once they're on the petition, they get notarized. So the petition gets notarized. Then the petition goes to the town for validation. So a town clerk will look at the petition and they'll say, okay, this is a registered voter. This is a registered voter. Oh, this person's not registered. We'll scratch that one off the list. Then after that, they go to the Secretary of State for final approval. So it's quite the process. Which is why we want folks to try to keep things organized, keep one petition per town, make sure that you're getting them notarized. If you have trouble finding a notary, we can always help. Most people's like their bank or their credit union will do this service for free. But if you're finding that someone is suggesting that they charge for it, just contact us and we'll get you in touch with someone who can notarize for free. Every lawyer is also a notary in Maine, so lawyers can notarize. We have to make sure that the notaries use a log, which isn't always a common practice. Some notaries don't use logs because it's only required for a few things, but it is required for petitions. So we have to make sure when we get them notarized to just check and see that they're using a log. I know the petition stuff is super exciting, but let's see, Louise, do you have a question? You're on mute. You gotta unmute, yeah.
So I'm actually doing data entry of the petitions into the database, but I've noticed on several petitions where it was really hard to see the notary's name. They didn't put their stamp on it. And so is that, I mean, I'm not, this is after the fact, so I can't do anything about it now, but is it necessary that they have a stamp that they stamp when they notarize it? So some people just put their name, print and sign their name, the notaries, but I noticed most of them do the stamp. And the stamp, and then they usually do the impression with the seal.
Right. It's a good question. I don't believe they have to use the stamp. I think it's just for ease of purpose, especially, you know, when we have these big notary events and notaries are notarizing hundreds of petitions, it's a lot of work to do without the stamp. So I had a couple more things I wanted to talk about, basically just next steps. So where do we go from here? We've all joined this call. Great. This issue is, we support the issue. We have to collect the signatures, but what do we do? What are our next steps? So I have, let me see. And Kelly, if you wanted to actually start dropping those links in, that would be great. So we have a few steps. We're going to hold a weekly volunteer meeting every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. And I'm going to send around all of this stuff at the end, and Kelly's going to drop a few things into the chat as we go. So we hope that you will join our weekly volunteer meeting. We'll use that time to continue to continue to grow as signature collectors. So we're going to talk about communication strategies, like what messaging to use, the best places to collect. We'll bring back stories from the field so that we can refine our skills and all that. So it's just going to be a space that we hold every week for people to come and share their experiences or to learn about what we're doing. So we hope that you will continue to stay engaged there. For people who have not collected signatures yet, your first step will be to get petitions and a circulator affidavit. And I'm happy to get you connected to someone in your area who has those materials, or to send them to you directly. So please reach out to me if you don't already have your materials. I'll try to follow up with folks as well, so that I'm not putting everything on you, but I am limited in bandwidth. So if you can reach out to me, that's great. We've got a couple of really good tools to stay connected, so that we're not just doing this stuff on Slack once a week, on Zoom once a week. We have what's called a Slack page for our campaign. Some of you are probably familiar with this app. It's a messaging app. It's a way to stay connected with the organizers, the volunteers. We've got different channels with all the different work that we're doing. So it's a way to get an inside look at what the campaign is doing at all times and stay connected and engaged with the work that we're doing. We do similar work in the Facebook group. We've got a volunteer Facebook group where people can talk about upcoming events and good signature locations, and we'll share resources in there as well. So feel free to join that. And then over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be building for a big statewide day of action on April 23rd. So we hope that you'll mark your calendars for that. We're planning on doing events all around the state, hopefully in about 6 or 7 locations that are pretty geographically spread out throughout the state. And we'll have an organizer there to train you, and to, we'll have multiple people at the events, and we'll just do tabling events regionally throughout the state. So that would be a great opportunity if you haven't collected signatures to learn how in person to get a real hands-on training. It's also just a fun opportunity for anyone to come out and be engaged in the campaign. If you can't make the 23rd, but you would like an in-person training, I'm happy to do that as well. I'm happy to talk to you all individually on the phone, on Zoom, even meet up. We can go stand in front of your local post office for an hour and collect signatures. Happy to help, or one of our wonderful new organizers will get you set up. And then I have some additional resources here that people can access that cover some of the stuff we talked about tonight. There's the affidavit in there, the full ballot language in case anyone wants to read that. I've got a signature collector's guide with a lot of the information we covered. The LD info is in there from LD 194. The governor's veto letter is in there if you're curious why Mills vetoed the LD. So there's a bunch of stuff. There's stuff about the amendment that I talked about. So feel free to dive in. As I mentioned, we'll continue this conversation weekly, so you don't have to absorb it all overnight, but some good stuff there if you want to dive in. And then there's our website. And that's all I had to cover today. So with the rest of the time, I'm going to open it up for anyone who wants to stick around and ask questions or brainstorm ideas. I would encourage people, if you have petitions, you don't have to wait for one of our events. Get out and collect while the spring weather is warming up, before people make their big summer plans. And our state is crawling with out-of-staters. Now is a great time to collect. So I'd encourage you to find your local farmer's market, or get out to an event near you if possible. And now I'll open it up. If anyone has questions, feel free to unmute yourself.
So Chris, this is Jason. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Jason.
Hi. So once we're done with the petitions, will we have instructions on how to get them back to you, or do we take them to the town hall to have them counted?
So yeah, that's a great question. So we will collect petitions from folks once they're done collecting. There are a few cases where we may have folks bring the petitions to their towns. But what often happens is, right, like if you go out and collect, you'll probably get signatures from 10 or 12 different towns. And it doesn't make sense for you to drive all over the state to those towns when we have petitions that already need to go there. So a lot of times we'll just take them and bundle them and send them out at the same time. But if, for example, you have like your town and you have a full sheet, it may make sense for you to bring it directly to the town. Or for example, after the June election, when everybody has their petitions from one town, then it can make sense. But we will, our plan would be, you would just reach out to me and we would have someone come pick up the petitions once they're notarized, or you could deliver them to our Portland office or to one of our organizers around the state.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Susan?
Hi, Chris. Do you know the dates of the date of the primary? Is the primary day, it's in June, but is it both Democrats and Republicans are on the same day, or do you know any details about that?
Yes, the main primary is on June 14th. I should know this. This is terrible that I don't, but it's either June 7th or June 14th. And I am
Okay.
right now, June 14th. And it is for both the Republicans and Democrats. It'll be the party primaries for the November races. I don't know if there's anything else on there, but it will be a statewide primary.
Okay, thank you.
And I think there are some there are some municipal elections happening right now. There are local the local elections. There are some special elections happening. So I would encourage folks to keep an eye on what's happening in your local governments. We had someone table at the special election in Kennebunk last week and one in Blue Hill, and those are great opportunities for collection. And then there's political conventions will be happening soon. So those are also good opportunities.
Well, there's the Democrats, the political convention in Bangor in May. So, but I don't know any more details than that. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Susan.
You're welcome.
Susan's been a staple of our campaign. Betsy says, thank you. Merci, gracias. Thank you for joining us tonight, Betsy. I don't see any other questions. I'm so glad that everyone joined. This is really exciting. We took a little hiatus, hibernated for the winter, but now that we're back active, there is a lot of excitement and energy on the campaign. And I just can't stress enough how much fun we're having out in the field. I don't know if I ever really shared the picture of us. We did a full weekend a few weeks ago. We went down Portland and Wells and Waterville, and we had tabling events around the state, and we had a sleepover. We all hung out at crashed at a place in Wells and had a fire. So I think, one of the cool things about this is it feels like it's not just about this one campaign. It's about this broader movement of coming together and organizing and, improving our communities and our state. And it's work that feels good, and we can have fun doing it. And I thank you all for taking time out of your evening to learn about what we're doing and be part of this movement. And I'm really looking forward to working with all of you. I'll send you all an email right after we wrap up with some links and follow-ups, opportunities to join our next meetings and trainings and the statewide day of action. Thanks all.
Thanks, Chris.